and time. Hello and welcome. My name is Dakota Graff. I'm excited, grateful, and honored to be here serving you one of the world's most beautiful coffees. We're going to cover a lot of ground, so please take a moment to relax and settle in. I want to talk about cultivating relationships of trust through coffee experiences. Now, I believe that despite the industry's challenges, producers and baristas share the same motivations. And I came to this conclusion through an unexpected way by thinking about a theory in physics. Now, this theory states that just before the existence of the universe, there was an infinitely dense particle known as the singularity. Now, this point contained a trace of everything that we know and see today, which, to be honest, is quite difficult for me to understand. Rigoberto Herrera prints on every box of coffee he sends us, developing singularity. Now, his nod to this theory struck me as strange at first, but as I thought about it, I realized its meaning. Rigoberto is striving to create the whole spectrum of flavors in one, where everything positive we experience in coffee exists. Now, after over 10 years in the industry, with the last 5 spent as green buyer for Onyx Coffee Lab, I can't help but feel a bit numb to the idea of. As an industry, it feels that we're constantly shifting our focus, creating expectations of higher and higher quality with no ceiling. Producers pursue better livelihoods by planting exotic varieties while battling soaring inflation and climate change. Now, sometimes I feel powerless against this system, and at others, I feel complicit. This is the great dichotomy of our industry. How can we claim to be so invested in something while simultaneously working against it with our actions? This is the challenge of the industry, which clarifies our priorities on an individual level. For me, I find the motivations of the barista and the producer to be the same, and that is to develop relationships of trust with those who we serve coffee. Now, this was on my mind during a recent visit to see Rigoberto and his team at Cafe Granja in Colombia. During my visit, Rigoberto shared his favorite coffee with me, and I was struck by its florals, its complexity, and its depth of sweetness. As he shared his favorite coffee with me, it became mine. Now, seeing Rigoberto's motivation to create beautiful coffees recalls my own role in the relationship. As a buyer, I have a unique perspective in the industry to see a through line from the producer to the roaster, and finally to the barista serving the consumer, each depending on those vital relationships of trust. This is the singularity we all share. Now, I want to cultivate our own relationship of trust by serving you Rigoberto's favorite coffee, this honey-processed sidra by Cafe Granja in Colombia. In order to uphold our new relationship of trust, I'm extracting this coffee purposefully in order to have a shared experience in flavor. I've distributed using the WDT method. This technique utilizes small needles to push the coffee around, breaking up clumps while distributing coffee evenly, reducing channeling, giving us a shared experience in flavor. Now, as I serve these espressos, please note the crema, but wait to taste. I'll be stirring these for you. So in these espressos, you'll experience red cherry turning to pomegranate. Ruby red grapefruit throughout. And unrefined cane sugar. The tactile is going to be one of my favorite things about this coffee. It's medium in weight, and it starts out slick, but goes to silky, soft, and round in texture. And it has a long finish, balanced with the ruby red grapefruit, with a new note of sweet dark chocolate. So please enjoy.
Let's have a round of applause for those espressos.
Now, I said before that I find the motivations of the barista and the producer to be the same, and that is to develop relationships of trust with those who we share coffee with. Now, my own relationship of trust with Rigoberto has been developing for the past 5 years, and what has astounded me about his work is his control of variables to produce extraordinary coffees. Now, I believe that the depth of sweetness in the Sidra is attributed to their processing methods. Whole Sidra cherries are placed in sealed tanks for 3 days. They're then removed to be depulped, only to be fermented again in the same sealed tanks for 4 more days. Now, usually this long fermentation results in the production of off-putting acetic acid. However, the low temperature at the mill of 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit slows the reaction of the microbes, reducing the production of acetic acid. Now, this slow fermentation is integral to maintain the floral nature of the variety while developing complex sugars and fruit esters in the cup. Now, I want to honor the work done on the farm by making critical decisions to elevate the experience of pairing this coffee with milk. Much like Rigoberto, I've done so by controlling key variables and utilizing a few techniques. I start by using high-fat milk, which I've distilled down by 70% through the process of freeze distillation. Now, this technique removes water, creating a high-fat and sweet milk. Now, over time, the naturally occurring lactobacilli consume sugars, converting them into acids, balancing the sweetness of the milk. Now, I've aged this milk for 5 days. I've steamed to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm combining 85 grams of the freeze distilled milk with 19 grams of our Sidra Espresso, which is about a 1-to-4 ratio. I found this to create a harmonious, sweet, and delicious milk beverage. Now, the techniques I've used today result in a transformation of the Sidra Espresso. In these, you'll experience white chocolate, complex banana bread, soft salted caramel, and warm cocoa. The tactile is heavy in weight. Its coating creamy and buttery in texture. And it has a long finish, recalling both the warm cocoa as well as the salted caramel. So please enjoy. 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 Enjoy.
Let's have a round of applause for those milk beverages.
Inspired by Rigoberto's flavor singularity, I wanted to use his Sidra and a few leftover ingredients to create one of my own. Now, the Sidra is integral to this beverage, and in order to add sweetness, I've extracted these espressos over dried cherries to accentuate the red fruit sweetness. I've used about 10 grams of dried cherries for this. To further add sweetness, I'm adding oolong tea and Szechuan peppercorn simple syrup. Now, the oolong tea adds balancing tannins to the beverage, and the Szechuan adds a subtle spice throughout the drinking experience, recalling the spice note that the Sidra variety is known for. I'm also adding 7 grams of coffee saccharum, which I've created by steeping spent espresso pucks from our signature beverage shots in refined cane sugar. Now, this technique is often used in citrus to extract oils into sugar. And by utilizing this technique, I was able to create a sort of spent ground syrup, adding a sweet depth to the beverage, reconstituting what once was discarded coffee. To add texture to the drink, I'm adding 50 grams of salted whey, which I've created by adding citric acid to the leftover milk from our freeze distillation process. Now, this separates the proteins from the foam. Separates the proteins from the fat, and those proteins create foam in the beverage when aerated. And the salt stabilizes those protein chains while brightening up the perceived acidity of the beverage. Finishing, I'm adding 10 grams of olive oil, which balances the sweetness of both the fruit-infused espresso as well as the syrup. I've made these an even temperature in order to aerate and warm these drinks. I'm steaming to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. This creates a warm and inviting drink. And my drinking instructions are to swirl, take in the aroma, and sip through the foam to the beverage below. But I'm going to ask you to please wait until I call time to consume. Now, in these, you'll experience cherry cordial, spiced cider, and dark rum. The tactile is going to be heavy in weight. It's going to be oily and slick in texture, and it's going to have a long finish recalling the cherry cordial and the spiced cider. As you enjoy, please let this rose fog cascade over the drinks, reminiscent of the morning that Rigoberto first shared this coffee with me. Now, judges, what is the answer to the question of the industry? What can baristas or producers do against a system that seems bound to work against the very thing that it was made for? My answer is to invest in what we share, to continue developing relationships of trust, which will help us get back to the singularity we shared in the beginning. Thanks so much. Time.
Give it up!
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Everyone, Dakota, Graff, Onyx Coffee Lab. All right, write this down.